Hey y'all, it's Jessica from Sloppy Swatches. Today I have a look at the Labyrinth Collection that's available right now through December 5th for a pre-sale on the Australian website. So I'll go ahead and link that down below. This is going to trickle down to stockists later in the month or into the new year, and I do have a full collaboration list of all the stockists on my blog if you're interested. So first up is As the World Falls Down, and this is described as a delicate, soft pink with ethereal green glow and golden holographic glitters. So this one almost looks like scattered sunshine on the nail, very pretty and delicate, definitely a cool mix. There's a quick look at that brush shot, and then I'll show you how As the World Falls Down swatched on my natural nail. This one is quite sheer. I would call it maybe a crelly because it does have a good amount of that shimmer running throughout. So one coat went on nice and evenly. I did have to be maybe a little bit mindful to get those golden holographic glitters spread out across the nail, but not a huge deal at all. So I'm going to go ahead and let that dry and then show you how it built up for me with a second coat. Two coats, it does definitely amp up that coverage and of course adds more of that really beautiful shimmer, but it was still maybe just a little bit sheer. I had a tiny bit of nail line peeking through, so I'm going to go ahead and complete this coat, let it dry, and then show you how it built up for me with my third and final coat. So here's a quick look at that. Just a really easy and fast third coat. Did pull this one completely opaque for me, and I do really love the finish. This one is going to dry down a little bit textured due to all of that holographic glitter, so I do recommend going in with one coat of your favorite glossy top coat. So here's a view from another angle in direct sunlight with a glossy top coat, and that shimmer is really coming through here. And then this is my final swatch photo at an angle, again in that direct sunlight. So next up is Through Dangers Untold, and this is described as a bog green with striking copper glow and golden holographic glitters. That description, maybe with it being bog green, is not the most attractive sounding. However, this polish is amazing. I am living for that copper shimmer in this mix. So here's a quick look at that brush shot, and then I'll show you how Through Dangers Untold swatched on my natural nail. So here's a look at that first coat. This one is a pretty glitter heavy, so it is maybe a little bit gritty to apply, maybe a little bit streaky, but it did go on pretty cool. I did have a little bit of nail line peeking through after this first coat, so I'm going to go ahead and let it dry and then show you how it built up for me with that second and easy coat. So here's a quick look at that. This second coat, I did go in maybe a little bit thicker, but it did pull this polish completely opaque. The glitter spread out really nicely for me, and also that copper shimmer really is going to help with opacity. This is another one that you're going to want to go in with your favorite glossy top coat. So here's a view from another angle in direct sunlight with that glossy top coat, and then this is my final swatch photo at an angle in that same direct sunlight. So next up is a Fairy Bites, and this is one that's towards the top of my favorites of this collection. This is described as a very light mauve with strong copper glow that leans the shade to a rather warm finish. So it has iridescent red flakies and golden holographic glitters, and really it's just a pretty and delicate mix. So here's a quick look at that brush shot, and then I'll show you how Fairy Bites swatched on my natural nail. This is another one that's going to start out a little bit sheer, but it does build up on itself beautifully. I think it really pays off because you get so many of those iridescent red flakes that come through in the finish. So there's a look at that first coat. I'll let it dry and then show you how it built up with the second. So here's a look at my second coat. I did go in for just a nice normal second coat here, and it does definitely add to that coverage. However, I do still have a little bit of visible nail line, but I am super appreciating all of that copper shimmer and those iridescent flakies. So I'm going to go ahead and let that dry and then show you how it built up for me with my third and final coat. And this one does bring it completely opaque. This is one of those finishes that I think is going to be amazing with a matte top coat. It's really going to bring all that shimmer and flakes even more to the forefront. This is another one that you're going to want to go in with a favorite coat of your favorite top coat. So here's a view from another angle in direct sunlight with that glossy top coat, and then this is my final swatch photo at an angle again in that direct sunlight. So next up is 13 Hours, and this is described as a warm tone brown leaning burgundy with subtle blue gleam, lots of silver holographic glitters, and holographic accents. So this one pulled pretty like a deep cranberry raspberry red, but that blue shimmer almost makes it a little bit more brown toned. Really cool to look at on the nail. So here's a quick look at that brush shot, and then I'll show you how 13 Hours swatched on my natural nail. So here's a look at that first easy coat. This one is super user friendly, went on really nice and even. It was maybe just a little bit sheer here, so I am going to go ahead and complete this coat and show you how it built up for me with a second coat. I did have to be a little bit mindful because that shimmer is pretty intense here, and it does tend to get maybe a little bit brush strokey. So here's a quick look at that second coat. This one is easily opaque in two coats with no issues at all. This is another one that you're going to want to go in with your favorite glossy top coat to help even out those really gorgeous glitters. So I did do just a nice broad stroke right down the middle, and that really helps with any brush stroking you may have. Here's a view from another angle in direct sunlight with a glossy top coat, and this is where I'm loving this polish. This is my final swatch photo at an angle, again in that direct sunlight. So next up is Lipstick Arrows, and this is described as a warm red with berry tones and blue glow that shifts to pink at an angle to the light. So in description, this sounds really familiar to 13 Hours, however they look completely different on the nail. So here's a quick look at that brush shot, and then I'll show you how Lipstick Arrows swatched on my natural nail. So here's a look at that first easy coat. The formula on this polish is impeccable. With one coat, it's really awesome coverage, not completely opaque unless you want to go in maybe a little bit heavy-handed. This is another one you may want to be just slightly mindful of any brush stroking, but it's really not bad at all. So I'm going to go ahead and complete that coat and then show you how it builds up for me with a second. So this second coat easily brings this polish completely opaque with no issues at all. It also doesn't dry down very textured, but it does have a beautiful glitter payoff. So I'm going to go ahead and complete that coat. So here's a look at the completed mani with a glossy top coat at an angle in direct sunlight. And then this is my final swatch photo at an angle in that same sunlight. So next up is a What's Said is Said, and honestly I feel like if you can only pick up one polish from this collection, this should be a very forefront runner to being that polish. So this is described as a stunning deep concrete blue with strong reddish orange multi-chrome shine and scattered holographic finish. So it's really hard to see that blue coming through here. It does look very warm and red on the nail, but you can see it here with this first coat. So here's a look at that first easy coat. This one does start out fairly sheer. If you wanted to use it as a topper over a darker color, you totally could, but it does build up nicely on itself. So I'm going to go ahead and let that dry and then show you how it builds up for me with a second coat. So here's a quick look at that. Honestly, this one is going to be right on the edge of being completely opaque in two. I am going to go ahead and let it dry and then show you how it builds up for me with a third coat, but it's going to be down to personal preference and application method. So here's a quick look at my third and final coat. I do feel like it's worth it for this polish because it does bring even more of that beautiful bright red shimmer and of course all of that holographic glitter. This one you don't have to worry about brush stroking at all. It just goes on beautifully onto the nail. So here's a view from another angle in direct sunlight with a glossy top coat, and this is super shifty. You do get gorgeous green tones at angles. This is my final swatch photo at an angle in that same direct sunlight. So next up is Rath, and this is another polish that's definitely at the top of my favorites list. I think if you love orange or warm tones, this is going to be a gorgeous one for you. So this is described as a plum red base that gives way to a striking bright orange, almost foil finish, so I picked up a lot of that on camera, with a silver holographic glitters in various sizes. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how it's swatched on my natural nail. Here's a look at that first easy coat, fairly pigmented here. It does go on with a ton of that shimmer already, as well as a ton of those glitters. It's not completely opaque. I do still have a tiny bit of visible nail lines. I'm going to go ahead and let that dry and then show you how it builds up for me with a second coat. So here's a quick look at my second and final coat, and it does easily bring this polish completely opaque, again with no issues. I do recommend going in with one coat of your favorite glossy top coat to help even out any of those larger holographic glitters, but this one is incredibly vivid on the nails, very shifty and super beautiful. So here's a view from another angle in direct sunlight with a glossy top coat, and then this is my final swatch photo at an angle in that same direct sunlight. So next up is Poison Peach, and this is a little bit of a different vibe from this collection. So this is described as a coral orange with blue glow and holographic golden glitters. That blue glow on top of this really light and delicate coral base is so cool to look at on the nail. So here's a quick look at that brush shot, and then I'll show you how Poison Peach swatched on my natural nail. So here's a look at that first easy coat. This one is very sheer. It does have a good amount of shimmer, which is definitely going to help bump up that opacity. But this first coat just makes for a nice blush of color on the nail. I'm going to go ahead and let that dry and then show you how it built up for me with that second coat. So here's a look at my second coat. It did go on nice and easy, very smooth, very easy to work with. It's not going to pull or run or stain on you at all. It is still just a little bit sheer here at 2 coats. So I'm going to go ahead, let that dry, and then show you how it built up for me with a third and final coat. So here's a quick look at that. I did go in for maybe a little bit of a thicker third coat, but it did pull this polish completely opaque. If you need to go super thin, you may prefer it at 4, but this finish is beautiful. So here's a view from another angle in direct sunlight with a glossy top coat, and then this is my final swatch photo at an angle in that same direct sunlight. So last up today, I have Helping Hands, and this is going to be a favorite, of course, for all of my purple lovers. So this one is described as a neutral blue with strong peak shimmer, red shifting to green iridescent glitter, holographic accents, and fine black holographic glitters. So I think that blue base paired up with the pink shimmer definitely pulls this one a little bit purple, really shifty and gorgeous on the nail. So here's a quick look at that first easy coat. This one does go on nice and smooth, really easy as well, a little bit sheer, but you can already see all of that really strong peak shimmer peeking through. I am going to go ahead, complete this coat, let it dry, and then show you how it built up for me with that second coat. So here's a look at my second and final coat, and it does, of course, bring this polish completely opaque with no issues again, just a really pretty finish. So I do recommend going in again with your favorite glossy top coat just to help even out any of the larger glitters that you get onto the nail. So here's a view from another angle in direct sunlight with that glossy top coat, and then this is my final swatch photo at an angle again in that direct sunlight. So it does wrap up my swatch and review of the Labyrinth collection. Again, these are available right now, so hop on over if you're interested. I do have more photos of any of the polishes featured here on my blog at sloppyswatches.com, or you can also follow me on Instagram at sloppyswatches. So thanks so much for watching, guys. Stay tuned for more Femme Fatale swatches coming soon, and I'll see you next time.